Season 5 is happening, and it's the last one. MGM Plus confirmed both pieces of news at the same time, back in April, 4 days before Season 4 had even premiered. Jeff Pinkner, John Griffin, and Jack Bender released a joint statement about finally getting to finish the story, which is not something this show has particularly earned the right to promise, after 4 seasons of raising far more questions than it's answered. Griffin later told The Hollywood Reporter there was real debate in the room about stretching this into a sixth season, and the team talked itself out of it on purpose, because one more season would have been for them, not for the story. That kind of restraint is rare for a puzzle box show. Lost never found it, and Pinkner spent years in that specific writer's room, so it's hard not to read the decision to stop at 5 as a direct response to watching a mystery outlive its own answers. So an ending is coming. We don't know its shape yet. But there's a scene worth revisiting now, from Season 1, Episode 8, because 4 seasons later, it reads less like a character beat and more like the show laying out its entire moral argument in advance. It happens at the diner. Boyd, Abby, Ellis, Donna, and Father Khatri are sitting at a table, working out how people survive the night, with nothing supernatural on screen at all. Abby asks the question every new arrival eventually asks: who built this place, and how long has it been here? Khatri can't answer her, and his explanation ends up mattering more than it sounds like it should. Nobody in town has any energy left over once they've spent it all just getting to sunrise, so nothing else ever gets looked into. That's the actual mechanism keeping this mystery unsolved. The town keeps people too exhausted, night after night, to ever start hunting for real answers. And that's a far quieter form of control than physically stopping anyone. Then Boyd starts talking, and what he says next matters more in hindsight than it did in the moment. He tells the room to keep it small at first, pool whatever supplies people have, put together an actual system, and make sure nobody spends the night uncovered. Get people watching out for each other. On the surface, he's describing hiding spot logistics. But Abby had just asked who built the town, and what Boyd describes is, functionally, how you build one. An agreement between the people inside it, made of roles, responsibilities, and a shared understanding that nobody gets left to fend for themselves. That distinction matters more once you know the original town was built on an agreement too, just the opposite kind. The first residents made a bargain: hand over the children, and the adults live forever. That takes consensus. Somebody had to propose it. Somebody had to keep the children underground while everyone else went on with their lives. And an entire community had to decide, together, that its own continued existence mattered more than the people it was responsible for. Boyd's diner speech and the original bargain are both social contracts. They just point in opposite directions. Look at what the monsters actually are, because the show never really hides it. They're not random supernatural threats wearing scary faces. They wear the clothes of a nurse, a waitress, a mechanic, a cowboy. They still move in groups, still coordinate, still understand hierarchy well enough to plan and carry out attacks. What they don't have anymore is the thing that used to justify the roles they're still wearing: any real care for the people around them. They kept the entire structure of a community and lost the reason that structure existed. That's an uncomfortable definition of monster for a show like this to build toward. A community that stopped protecting the people inside it and kept functioning anyway, on autopilot. Boyd's project runs the opposite direction, and it's slow and visibly unfinished, which is part of why it holds up. Donna didn't arrive already protecting children who weren't hers. She learned to. Kenny kept serving people in town after this place had already taken both his parents from him. Sara keeps putting herself in danger for residents who, by her own account, might never forgive her for what's happened since. They showed up as strangers thrown into the same nightmare, and over 4 seasons, they've been slowly, unevenly, and sometimes badly learning to look out for one another. The original town started as a community and abandoned the people in it. This one started as a pile of strangers and is still trying to become a community. And the show keeps putting both versions in the same physical space, so the contrast is impossible to miss. Nowhere is that contrast sharper than at the diner itself. It's the social center of the town, the place where news travels and the belongings of the dead get stored, and it's where Boyd made his first public agreement, back in season 1. Now, put that next to the season 4 finale, where Sophia sits down across from Elgin at that same diner and offers him a private deal. Help her, and she'll send him home. One condition: don't tell anyone. That's the exact inverse of what Boyd offered. Boyd's arrangement was public and asked people to take on responsibility for each other. Sophia's was secret and asked Elgin to put his own way out ahead of everybody else's safety. Same table, same room, two completely different definitions of what survival means. Elgin turned her down. She killed him anyway, which tells you roughly what the offer was ever worth. Isolate a person, offer them a private way out, ask them to keep it quiet. Once you notice that pattern, it shows up constantly. Jasmine didn't break Colony House by attacking its strongest wall. She got to Kevin alone and talked him into opening a window. Sara's visions don't address the whole town. They talk to her privately and tell her that hurting specific people will save everyone else. Across 4 seasons, the man in yellow has never needed to beat this town in a straight fight. He needs one person willing to make a private deal, because a fractured town can be walked back toward the original bargain, one isolated person at a time. Season 4's finale is where that tension finally broke something structural. Tabitha and Jade went down into the chamber beneath the bottle tree to recover the children's bones, on the theory that it might free everyone, and it's the kind of move only an organized, functioning town could even attempt. Then the rope ladder gave out thanks to Sophia's interference, and the two of them got trapped deeper in the tunnels while daylight failed in the middle of the afternoon and the creatures poured toward the opening. Above ground, the same disaster shook loose the talisman protecting the clinic, and Smiley walked straight in and killed Marielle in front of Christy. Fatima, who'd been changing in ways the season kept hinting at without confirming, ended up leading the rescue into the tunnels alongside Boyd and Ellis. When the group got cornered, she turned to face the creatures herself, told the others to hold on to who she used to be, and screamed at them in their own language long enough for everyone else to get out. It matters who went down there in the first place. Tabitha and Jade aren't just 2 residents who happened to volunteer for a dangerous job. Season 3 confirmed that Tabitha is the reincarnation of Miranda, and Jade is the reincarnation of Christopher. 2 people tied to this town going back decades, both of them connected to children lost in that original sacrifice. The 2 people best positioned to finally pull those bones out of the ground are also the 2 people whose own history runs directly through the crime that created this place. That's not incidental. If the town really is forcing its current residents to relitigate the original bargain, it tracks that the ones doing the digging never got to choose whether they'd be part of it in the first place. The bottle tree is gone. Getting those bones out is apparently something no earlier cycle of this town ever managed, which by the internal logic of the show counts as a real setback for the man in yellow. Sophia doesn't sound worried about it. Her position amounts to this: fine, but the tree is still gone, and losing whatever protection that thing provided is its own kind of win for her, regardless of who walked away with a box of bones. Not everyone thought the season pulled off its ending well. Forbes critic Eric Kane, reviewing the finale, said he was frustrated that the back half of the season felt weak, with most of the real payoff crammed into the last episode after a stretch he considered a genuine slog. That criticism and the theory here aren't in conflict. A show can be building a real structural argument about community and sacrifice across 4 seasons and still pace its individual episodes unevenly along the way. A satisfying thesis doesn't automatically excuse a rough middle stretch, and this one had one. Which brings this back to where it started. If the original bargain got made by an entire community choosing its own survival over the people it was supposed to protect, undoing it probably doesn't come down to one hero, one reincarnated couple, or one artifact pulled out of the ground. The town got built by a collective decision, and everything the show has shown so far suggests it's going to take another collective decision to unbuild it. Boyd's own system still hasn't solved its biggest flaw, and Season 1 already showed us what that flaw looks like. While he was busy organizing shelters and handing out roles to everyone else, Abby was falling apart, and he got so focused on being useful to the entire town that he missed what was happening to the person closest to him, even though he loved her the whole time. A system that protects bodies at night without protecting people's actual minds is still an incomplete system. That gap has already cost the town more than once. Jim at the end of season 3, Elgin and Marielle in the season 4 finale. People close enough to the center of the group that their loss should have been preventable. Fatima is the open question the finale left hanging, and she might be the hardest test the theory has to pass. She didn't just survive the tunnels, she spoke the creature's own language to buy everyone else time. And Smiley called her mother earlier in the season, which is about as direct a claim on her as this show has made on anyone. Whatever she's turning into, the town's whole system now has to answer a harder version of its own promise. Everybody covered was a manageable idea back when everybody still looked human. It gets a lot harder to hold on to once one of the people it's supposed to protect starts looking like the thing everyone else is hiding from at night. Pinkner has described Season 5, in an interview about what's ahead, as built around a final stand for both the Man in Yellow and the residents, with the goal being real answers instead of another cliffhanger. Production is expected to start later this year in Halifax, with a premiere sometime in 2027. Julie is worth watching closest going in. She's the character who can reportedly storywalk, step backward into the town's own recorded past. If that ability means what 4 seasons have hinted it means, it might end up being how the show finally answers Abby's question from that diner scene. The one about who actually built this place and why. If the pattern this show has been running since season 1 holds, the final answer comes down to whether this specific town, when it's offered some version of the bargain that built the first one, says no together, out loud, and means it.